Hi guys, and welcome back. This is Zack, Ireland from Home Life Green Team Real Estate here in Sudbury, Ontario. And today we'll be looking at Operating Efficiency Ratio, or OER. So first of all, OER, what is it? So all OER is your operating expenses. In a lot of other metrics, we use like a net operating income, and that would be your income minus your operating expenses. But this time, we just want the operating expenses. So I have an example property here, but before we go into that, let me finish talking about the formula. So we have operating efficiency ratio equals total operating expenses. Very simple. Total operating expenses, everything except for financing, essentially, over the square footage of the property. So what does that really mean? What does this tell us? Why would this be important? So OER is useful when comparing properties, especially multifamily and commercial properties, to other multifamily and other commercial properties in your same market. Now, if you do these calculations, for dozens of properties, you'll start to see patterns, and you'll start to see what a healthy operating efficiency ratio is and what an unhealthy one is. Here in Sudbury, you can expect to see something around 3. That would be $3 per square foot, right? So about 3 is normal, but it can go as high as 10, depending on the property, and it can go as low as 1 or even less than 1. Again, it all depends on the property. So I've got 2 examples lined up today, and like I said, this is very simple, but this will start to give you an idea. If you ever do come across operating efficiency ratio and they're telling you it, at least you'll know where they're getting that from, and then you'll know how to compute it yourself. So again, OER, we're going to start with that, equals total operating expenses. Now I've written down the price, total debt service, TDS, and the total operating expenses, and I've written down the square feet. We don't actually need the price in this, but I thought I would write it down just to give you kind of more context of what's going on. This property is a real property here in Sudbury that recently sold. I think it was a 4-plex. I did this yesterday, so it's escaping me, but it's a 4-plex. And if you do a 25% down, like I've shown in other videos, the total debt service for a 25-year mortgage will be $21,595.50 per year. Again, that's a rough estimate. That's just the way that I do it, and that gives us kind of a rough metric. The total operating expenses for the same property are just $7,662 a year, so pretty low. Now that I'm thinking of it, this was just a duplex, and that's why the operating expenses are so low. But again, we only need operating expenses and square footage to calculate OER. So let's go ahead and do that. So total operating expenses, 7,662 over 2,212. And if you plug that in your calculator, you'll get 3.463. And that seems about right. Because in Sudbury, you can expect to get about a $3 per square foot. And that's essentially what this is, and what this means is you can expect that every year it's going to cost about $3 per square foot of that property if nobody was paying you and it was completely sitting vacant, just the operating expenses. Now, that's ignoring things like hydro and electricity, but we're assuming those would stay the same. So that's what the cost per square footage is, just to keep the property over time. That's if no rent's coming in whatsoever. So let's do a second example. This video is going to be pretty short because honestly, operating efficiency ratio is pretty rare in the industry, but maybe this will be useful for people because it is rare. So let's just go right to it. So total operating expenses and square footage, that's all we need. So OER equals 5,500. Again, this is per year. And this one I did is just a single family. It's all coming back to me now. So this one is just a single family. That's why the operating expenses are even lower than for that duplex. But being a single family, it's also quite a bit smaller, right? So the smaller it is, the better the operating efficiency ratio. And that will come out to 4.164. So what does that mean in relativity? What does that mean? This property on paper is less favorable in terms of the operating efficiency ratio than this property. Remember, this is like a single family, and this is a duplex. And this is single. So what does that mean? All that means is this property per year is more efficient with the costs that it incurs per square foot. You know, maybe it's better windows. Maybe the tenants use less water. There could be a multitude of reasons, you know, less maintenance, whatever. But once you start accumulating a real estate portfolio, you can compare the operating efficiency between the properties to see which one is operating more efficiently. Because expenses are really what breaks down, you know, the cost side of that formula. Because you always have, you know, well, in economics, it would be benefit minus cost, right? That would be value, how much value you're receiving. But in real estate, it would be like your income or your gross income minus the cost. So you always need to keep this in mind in real estate. If your costs get too big, you know, if it's not operating efficiently, if the property is incurring too many costs, then maybe that's not, you know, a good property to hold long term. Because even though it might be getting more money, if there's like a vacancy or if something happens, the property is not operating at optimum. Maybe that's because of tenants again. But more often than not, these things stay stable more or less over time. And that's why we always do a yearly figure. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is a ratio. So just like I've explained in other videos, this is, you know, algebra, but I think it's important to understand, you know, if you were to double the costs, if you were to double your expenses, then this ratio would go up. So $4 per square foot, you don't want to be paying $4, you want to be paying $3. I probably messed that up earlier. I think I did. So just to be clear on that one. So if we double the cost, you know, to 11,000 and the square footage is the same, let's say we converted this same property to, you know, a triplex. It's very small, but say that we did. The operating efficiency ratio would actually get worse because there would be more water, more electricity. That's all I've got for you guys today, and hopefully you enjoyed that one. If you have any more questions, reach out to the brokerage. You can reach out on YouTube here in the comments or give us a call.